All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jennifer Dertuzos, a Community Engagement Director for Turn, which is a composting service in Dallas, Texas. I'm joined by Arielle Toelke. She is the author of this book, Cooking Color, Finding a Rainbow in the Kitchen. And you can get this through all sorts of ways, but I'll let her tell you about that later on in the interview. And for those who don't know Arielle, she is a maker, experimenter, and a dabbler. Fun and play are rooted in her art practice along with color. She has lived in Brooklyn for 20 years. She moved to the city to become a makeup artist, and being a makeup artist has been her career for almost 20 years. She loves her career, but also loves playing with color in all ways imaginable, from natural dyes, textiles, and cut paper collage. Sustainability has been at the core of her side business for Rabbit, where dyeing elements is part of the product line. And that's just such a fun way to just like look at everything because you get to play with color and someone's face is the canvas. And it's always changing because even on the same person, if they've gotten a little bit more sun one weekend, then they come back, you're totally using different colors. So yeah,
Absolutely.
all of
Absolutely.
that.
I feel my practice and my career are very interdisciplinary, I
Yes,
guess, in
yes.
sort of all ways.
Nice. Yeah, it's just so cool to have you on here. So I'm very excited. One of the first questions is, um, I always ask how people found inspiration or how they found their path. I read that since you were a kid, you colored everything with rainbow. I feel like I would have been right there with you, like at the same desk sharing crayons. Um, but you didn't start dyeing until 2015. Could you please talk about that indigo workshop and the moment you realized that it was more than just a fun afternoon project?
Sure. I think I've always been a dabbler, creator, artist. I was really nurtured as a little kid. Sort of any craft myself or my sister wanted to get into, my parents were like, okay, great. What do you need? Let's make it happen. And I think I'm a curious person. And so I've always just been interested in a lot of things. And I don't know, I saw this indigo workshop. It was at Pioneer Works, which is a really great gallery and artist space located in Brooklyn. And I saw this indigo workshop and I kind of was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I went and it was very small, it was very intimate. I wish I could remember the instructor's name. She was really great and just was so excited about indigo, and I think that excitement rubbed off on me. And I'm also the kind of person, I'm a curious person who, once I get into things, I dive headfirst into everything, and then I have to know everything. Of course, you can never know everything about indigo because it's such an incredible, vast topic. But I came home and I scoured the internet and I found all the supplies. And I remember making my first vat with uric acid, which is what's in urine. And so my apartment smelled terrible, but I was able to dye things. I don't think I used enough indigo. Things were pretty light, but it was just sort of this, I'm not a chemist, but sort of all the chemistry happened and it just worked. And I all of a sudden was able to get color on cloth. And that sort of just piqued my interest to go deeper into natural dyes. Indigo is super complicated. It actually is one of the dyes I probably use the least. Um, and but yeah, it really kind of gave me that push into this amazing world of natural color, and then sort of again this rabbit hole of natural color and sustainability in the fashion space, and feeling what my personal impact was sort of in my craft as well.
Do you have any pieces from that indigo workshop? I wonder if you have like a piece from that, or what do you remember what you dyed?
I had a pair of white jeans they probably would fit me now. They were very big on me when I dyed them. Um, and I just remember I probably would wear them. I would wear them a lot if I still had them now, but I definitely got rid of them. But they were sort of, I crumpled them up. And I think probably everything that was even remotely white or off-white in my closet definitely it turned blue. Like I just, I made this pot and it was everything.
But I
Everything
think
I had in my house went in there.
everything was indigo all of a sudden. What
Yeah.
I love is that you were using things that you already had, whereas other people might, and you get into that in your book, but instead of ordering online and getting a whole bunch of white t-shirts, you basically scoured your closet and your existing inventory. And I'm seeing this sustainability thread run along your whole everything. So we really appreciate that. That's so cool, actually. We think so anyway. The process of dyeing is quite intricate. As you mentioned, there is some chemistry involved, and there's some trial and error, but once you get to a space where you know exactly what you want, how you want the thing to look, there's a lot of technique involved. So, aside from the tips in your book, cooking color, finding a rainbow in your kitchen, what advice would you give someone just getting started with dyeing?
I think be very open-minded. And I think that's sort of how I go into all of my experiments, and even making the book and working out my textile samples for the book. It wasn't necessarily an exact science, and I wish that, it was easy to just like put a recipe like it is to, like cook a casserole or something, right? Where you just use these ingredients and it's great, or, add a little bit more basil or a little of this.
Mhm.
Um, but it definitely is sort of, there are really specific recipes for preparing your fabric, but even within that sort of recipe space, there's a lot of variation. And I think what's so nice about natural dyes is that you don't need to go far to start your practice. And I think it's like, and I even state in the book, it's really important to just start small. I have a lot of natural dye books, and they're all amazing, and so many of them are filled with these great projects. But as a beginner dyer, it feels really intimidating, and you might go out and buy, oh, I have to buy a t-shirt or a brand new set of pillowcases, and what if I mess it up? We're not, you can't mess it up, right? You're just taking like an old pair of socks and you're going to dye those. You're going to take, an old t-shirt that might end up in the rag pile, but you're just going to play with that. And I think to be open-minded and to just want to experiment is going to be so exciting that you're going to want to do more, versus feeling discouraged if you try to replicate something that a professional dyer has done right out of the gate.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the fun and the discovery of the process, because as you make those mistakes, and I don't even call them really mistakes, but as you go through those learning experiences, you'll arrive at your style, right?
Yeah, and I think you find the colors that you are really drawn to and the materials that work for you. And then, the results that, when you get something and it's, you pull it out of the pot and it is neon, bright, vibrant yellow. It is such a big win, and it's not hard to do. And I think getting those little wins, you just kind of want to dive deeper. And I love natural dyes because they're sort of, there's no end. There's nobody that says, oh, I know it all, right? Because there's so many avenues you can do. I mean, indigo, it's its own thing. My book about kitchen dyes, it's its own other thing. There's all of these historical dye colors. And then you can even go further and make pigments from your dyes and start making your own art materials. So it's a real rabbit hole. And I mean, I can't stop consuming information on color, on natural dyes, on all things natural pigments, just because it's so, I mean, so interesting to me.
Yeah, and what you're saying with the dyes and the natural dyes, it looks different on different fabric.
Yeah.
Like
So
it depending on, yes, yeah. It's so wild.
yeah,
Are you teaching a workshop anywhere anytime soon?
I will be teaching actually in September. I will be teaching two natural diet classes. I'm teaching a 2-day sort of beginner intensive at Snow Farm, which is a craft school in New England and Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then at the end of September, I am teaching a surface design through natural dyes class. So it's a very design focused class. We'll work on pattern and repeated pattern. And then we'll use, not to get too technical, but a lot of different mordants to print and silk screen our designs. And then through the different mordants that we use, we'll alter and change the different color dyes. So we'll get a lot of different variation from one dye pot through pattern on our cloth.
So
And that's
cool.
a 4-day class at Sanborn Mills Farm in New Hampshire.
Oh, cool. Okay. Keep watching to find out how to find out more about Arielle. So, last question, and I knew this would go the whole time because this topic and you are so fascinating. So, last question, with your method of dyeing, you know precisely what materials, elements, and substances are being used, because you're using natural items, specifically food waste, which is amazing because as someone who composts, that just like speaks to my soul. Can you please talk about the differences, good and bad, between natural dyes and commercially available dyes? Like, I guess
Sure.
manufactured dyes. I don't know if I'm saying that phrase correctly.
Right. Well, in the dye space, it's
Mhm.
like it's divided into two categories: natural dyes and synthetic dyes. Natural dyes are great if you're dyeing natural fiber, right? So cotton, linen, flax, silk, wool, all natural fibers. And there's a section in the book that talks about what's a natural fiber versus a synthetic fiber. If you have anything that's a synthetic fiber, right, like a polyester, any sort of those plastic bottle made
Yeah,
clothes, things like
yeah.
that, those materials will not accept natural dyes. So let's say you have a pair of, I don't even know, like leggings, right? Like a spandex legging, and you want to give them a refresh. You'd have to dye them with a synthetic dye because you wouldn't be able to use a natural dye to dye that fabric. Traditionally, synthetic dyes tend to be more light fast and wash fast, which means that they hold up through multiple wash cycles and in the sunlight, where many natural dyes have different fastness properties, whether they wash out quicker or are more sensitive to light. But all of those things, the more you start dyeing, the more you find that there's like indigo is very wash fast, very light fast. There's a bunch of medieval dyes, more plant-based dyes, not necessarily the things in the book, that are very light fast, very wash fast, that are just as long lasting as a synthetic dye. So um, knowing what those are and what the application is especially knowing your fiber just to begin with, is what would make the decision to use a natural dye or a synthetic dye.
Or how much you love the planet. No, I'm just kidding.
Or how much you love the planet. I mean, I've made, of course, I have workout leggings that are
Sure.
synthetic, but I try to, keep my wardrobe as much natural fiber as possible. And it's great because once you have a white t-shirt and the pits no longer are white, you just throw it in a pot and
Good
it's
to
great,
go.
like a new
There it
shirt.
is. There it is. No, I mean, no shade on anyone who likes, I mean, my goodness, I have synthetic things, but what I fully like, I really love that Ariel is basically taking things that would immediately go to the compost pile, which is fine. Of course, we want to make sure things, as many things can stay out of the landfill as possible. But she's actually taking something that would normally be discarded and creating something amazing, creating some sort of art, wearable art, or whatever it may be, a tapestry or textiles or whatever. And it's just giving that item one more step to be something great, like transforming it from trash to treasure, or
Yeah, I love
for,
that.
for lack of a better phrase. I know that sounds kind of trite, but that's how we see it. That's how Lauren, our CEO and founder, she saw your book and she was like, Jen, I just ordered you one. You must meet this person and talk to her. And her book is amazing. So she is a mega super fan of yours. But I know we're out of time now. Ariel, thank you for taking so much time to speak with us and explain this whole world to us. I know it was just a little bite of the iceberg, but for anyone who is looking for more information about you and getting more information about those workshops that you're teaching, or how best to follow just the things that are happening in your world and natural dyeing, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is for.rabbit, FOUR.rabbit. You can also check out my website, forrabbit.com. You can purchase the book on my website under the natural dye section. You can also get it on Amazon. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm sometimes okay about sending you things about what I'm doing, but I definitely post on Instagram things about my workshops where I'll be selling my book in person and everything else that goes on in my little business.
Yay. Thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much
And
for having me. It was
yeah,
really
and
great.
just for doing this. This is so like just natural dyes and the world and all this stuff. So thank you, Arielle. We will be following your journey, and don't be surprised if someone pops up at one of your workshops. Maybe not necessarily the next quarter, but we'll be following your journey. So
Awesome. Thank you
thank
so much.
you. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.